Hey, welcome everyone. The reason for this podcast is it's the voices of change makers. Its powerful message could be centered around the idea of inspiration, resilience, and the ripple effect of positive action. Today, more than ever, the world needs voices that spark change, ignite hope, and drive transformation. Change doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when individuals choose to step forward, speak up, and take bold action. Whether you're leading a global movement or making a difference in your own community, your voice has power. In this podcast, we aim to amplify those voices, share the journeys of resilience, change makers, and inspire each of you to recognize your potential and impact the world. Let's create a ripple effect together. This message taps into the concept of collective empowerment and emphasizes the significance of individual contributions in driving social change. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards, and today with our guest from Red Barn, Justin, we're going to be talking about the absence of structure. And a lot of guests have talked a little bit about this, so I'm really excited to hear more because I really do believe, Justin, that a lot of us have absence in our life. And it is really based off of structure, right? Because we need to have so much discipline. And I think a lot of kids lose themselves when they're younger because they don't have that structure and the direction where to go. And it's no fault of their parents. I don't want people to think that I'm blaming them because they're doing the best that they could as well, right? All of us who are parents, we wasn't handed any kind of manual on how to be proper parents and good parents. It's all been based off of what we've learned from our parents and just basically winging it, getting thrown right into the fire.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the absence of structure, what was that like for you?
Growing up without that structure, because both my parents were, my dad was an alcoholic, my mom eventually became an addict. And so, first off, when my dad wasn't around, when I was a young man growing up, my mom had to fend for three kids, working all the time. She was never home, and it was because she was trying to do what she thought was right, which was provide for us. So she was working two jobs, always working 16, 18-hour days just to feed us. And so not having a father around to kind of teach me how to be a man, again, he probably, like you said, he didn't learn that from his dad or whatever that looks like. And so he was unsure of how to do it. And so he just avoided it and wasn't around in mine or my sister's life. And so my mom fending for three kids, single mother, that's a hard thing to do. And so she was constantly working. So when that happened, I kind of just ran amok. I didn't have any discipline. I did whatever I wanted. It turned into drugs and alcohol at the age of 11. I was sexually molested by a friend of my sister's because I had a sister that was older. She was 18 when I was 11. So one of her friends, I thought was teaching me what sex was and how that thing was. But really, if you look back on it, she was molesting a child. And so I grew up way too fast. I experienced things I shouldn't have experienced because of lack of structure. I did things that I shouldn't have been doing as an 11-year-old kid because of lack of structure and discipline.
Yeah. And when we talk about lack of structure, my gosh, there's such a wide range. Anyway, that's kind of my version of it because there's so much. And as being a parent myself, I know there's no way we can hit on every second flipping cylinder, right? There's no way. However, there are some that are a little bit worse, I guess, than others that can really make a huge change in your life. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but for a lot of the guests too, and so many other individuals out there to already be in a situation where your parents are also battling their traumas, right? Their fears and their pains and whatever. I mean, that's a hard place to start. That is such a hard place to start as a child because we all think we know what life is about. Once we start hitting puberty, we think, yeah, we've got this. We know everything there is to know about life. And even into our 30s and 40s, we still really don't know anything about our lives. So it's unfortunate that so many individuals out there just kind of start in a really bad position right off the get-go.
And it makes it hard growing up as a going through it personally as a kid. It's hard to really find your place. I grew up with two sisters and a mother, and I feel like that had caused me throughout, even through my 20s and probably even still till now, that I was unsure of myself as a man. I didn't have a man available to learn how to be that man. And so my I always felt like there was something missing with me, whether that was because I haven't learned how to fully be a man. And it's like you said, we're not given a guide. We're not given a guidebook on life. We're not given a guidebook on parenting. So I like to think they did the best they could, dealing with their traumas, dealing with their issues, and trying to teach somebody else, is that's a hard place to be too, for them to be going through what they were going through while also trying to guide us in a way. I truly believe that's why he wasn't around, because he was insecure and thought, hey, I got my issues. How am I going to teach these guys, right? That's what I've got since we've rekindled the relationship when I got older, is that he was just afraid and didn't know how to be that person. And so instead of, like me, instead of facing those fears and facing that challenge, he just ran from it. And, it's kind of the way it happens. I do believe that structure, a lot of it is even just presence, right? Even if you're just present is a big part of starting the structure, because I remember moments where, I had discipline in my life, but the presence of a lot of things, his presence in my life might have changed things, or you never know.
No, and I think that's a very good subject or topic to talk about, really, the presence, because that is huge. And what came to mind when you said presence is we had a mom and a daughter on my show a couple of years ago, and the mother ran the streets, right, and she was out there drugging and drinking and homeless there for a long time, and really left her kids. And to see her daughter come on the show and both sit there and to watch, my gosh, it was like a spiritual moment that happened in the studio that day, and watch this connection form again, and to see the perspectives from each individual. The mom saying, the reason why I left, it's not that I didn't love you, and it's not that the drugs and alcohol and the streets was more important. It's that I did not want you to be around it. I did not want you to see me the way that I was when I was on this substance. And the daughter's looking at it going, Mom, we all thought you left because the drugs and alcohol was more important. So to see the two, how they looked at it, and then to see how this understanding formed and came together. I mean, there was four of us in the studio that day, and all four of us were sitting there just crying with tears coming down our cheeks and it really opened my eyes to go, my gosh, how many times throughout our lives do we look at things totally the way that we see it, but it's not really that way, and not understanding how the other individual sees it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a big thing, is putting yourself in their shoes, having some empathy. I remember seeing I think it was a video or something on YouTube, and it showed this person pulling up to a drive-through, and the drive-through person was being short and rude. And then it shows that same person that was at the drive-through um getting mad, having road rage, right? Because somebody cut him off. And it kind of splits back to, okay, the person at the drive-through, it shows them going home to a younger brother and sister, and the parents are gone or on drugs, and they're having to fend for their brother and sister, kind of like what happened with me, and then it shows the person that was angry with road rage going home to all these bills, and debt. And you just never know what people are going through, right? We all have our struggles, and we gotta, I think, meeting in the middle and having that compassion, and luckily for the way I grew up, it helped me to see that and have some empathy, so as hard as it was, as hard as that growing up in a tumultuous household with no discipline, no structure was, I feel like it was a big part of what caused me to be so empathetic towards people, because for a minute I wanted to hate my father, right? I wanted to hate him and be angry at him for not being around, not teaching me how to be a man, all these things. But then I realized I had somebody dear to me say, don't hate him. He's got his struggles too. He doesn't know how to be a father, and he doesn't want to teach you the wrong way. And so after I heard that, it kind of made me meet them in the middle and say, he struggles, and finding that empathy and just being there, is huge, I think, when it comes to that kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts, Justin, on, this is your journey. I mean, a lot of people feel as though we already know that we're being sent here for a purpose and a reason, and whatever that may be, because we're not supposed to know. God knows, or whatever your higher power is knows, however you want to look at it. And to see where your journey has taken you, it's I'm doing my best now to have that empathy, even like what you're saying, and go, you know what? Even like with my ex-wife, she's struggling with alcohol, and I'm watching this beautiful person who I was so madly in love with and spent 18 years with her, just kind of take a wrong turn, and doing my best to have that empathy. And I've had people who I am close to in the recovery community go, Al, you got to keep remembering this is her journey, not yours. This is her journey. I'm kind of hearing that from you, right? That you're understanding your dad's journey was his journey, your mom's journey was hers. This is your journey, and this could be is that exactly what needed to happen with you, as hard, as tough as it was to get you to be the individual that you are today.
Yeah, and for the longest time, it used to make me angry when people would be like, everything happens for a reason, everything happens for a reason. And because I'd always find I play the victim, right? I'd always find these situations like both my parents passed away. And so I'd be like, what's the reason for this? And it would make me angry. But then over time, we have what we call defining moments here at Red Barn. And I truly believe for the longest time, I thought it was when my parents passed that my addiction started, but it was long before that, right? It was these defining moments that, one, I didn't see him as that at first, having a father that wasn't around, learning from somebody that told me, hey, don't hate him, that to have empathy and compassion, to learn how to granted at too young of an age to be responsible, all these things I learned because of these defining moments, these hard times that, yeah, in essence made me who I am, allowed me to have compassion. Do I wish if I could go back and say I had both parents happily married throughout my life and did all these great things and I lack empathy? I would rather go through what I've gone through and have empathy for others, because to me, that's important. Like you said, in the world today, where there's so much evil and hate out there, like empathy, compassion, and kindness is something that the world needs, and granted, I've lacked that at times in life. I'm not perfect. Um, but I've always tried to have it as much as I can, because there's enough of the opposite out there.
Yeah. Yeah, amen. And I was that same type of person. I'd drive downtown and see the unsheltered down there and the addicts, and I'd make my comments underneath my breath, right? Get a damn job, and what the F is wrong with you? And I can't believe this is, and then here I do, God placed me in the recovery community. And then I start a show and I start meeting individuals like yourself, and I start hearing their stories, and I start hearing their journeys. And there has been, whew, I get emotional even thinking about it sometimes. There has been so many times I got off the show and just had tears in my eyes going, Al, what a freaking, you've been looking at this so wrong all your life. And to be able, now I go downtown and I see individuals, and the first thing that pops in my head is going, my gosh, what's your story? What is your story? What put you here? What got you to this point? And it literally does open your eyes. And I think, not think, this is one of the things of doing this show is to also help get rid of that stigma. And I know so many of us in the recovery community want to see that happen. And I literally do believe the change is starting to happen. I think people are starting to open their eyes a little bit more. And it's because of places like Red Barn and USARA and TOSA and Clean Slate Utah. I mean, so many people out there that are just pushing and talking and pushing and talking, that people are starting to wake up and go, huh, maybe there's more to this than what we really understand.
Absolutely. And that, that's you too. You can add you to that list of people that are getting the word out. Cause, I think it's beautiful to see, because I remember kind of touching base on what you said about the homeless. And I remember when my mom was struggling with her addiction, and I at this point hadn't experienced addiction yet. Um, I had dabbled, right, and used drugs, but I wasn't physically dependent upon a substance. And I used to always just be like, well, I don't understand, right? I don't understand why you can't just stop, and luckily she passed away before she got to see me at these lows with mine. And but it opened my eyes, like you said, it opened my eyes to realize how how much empathy I lacked for her in those moments, because I had no clue, because I did not understand what she was going through. I did not realize how difficult that was. And I think that's why it's so important for the words to get out, and to see, like, you don't understand really, like, what's going on with people until, one, you've either experienced it yourself, or you get out there and you research, and you listen to podcasts like yours, you talk to places like USARA, and go to those things, and truly dive into what this is, because addiction really touches, if not everybody, close to it in some way or another. It touches a lot of people, and that's why it's so important to have these podcasts, to be united. Like when we do our events here, we make sure we invite community, recovery centers, anybody we can out there in the recovery community, just to bring awareness, to unite, because it's a huge battle that we'll probably never win, but we don't stand a chance of even denting unless we're united together, and get the word out.
Yeah, amen. That
Yeah.
is that is spot on. Definitely spot on. Yeah, I've been a guest on a lot of other podcasts, and I've had about, I don't know, three or four people say, so isn't that a competition? Why would you want to be a guest on somebody else's podcast that deals with addiction? It's like, because I have them on my show too that talks about it, because we've got to join forces. We've got to join forces to make a change in our communities. So, I mean, I just had the opportunity to be in a guest on a podcast in the UK, and I just did the favor back. I had the gentleman come on and be a guest on my show here in the States. And to hear that it's even going on in other countries, right? Across the pond, as they say. There's so many people suffering. Like you said, there's so many of us that's being affected by an addiction. No matter what the addiction is, it's still harming families, it's still harming people and taking them away from a very joyful life, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the competing, because naturally most of us are competitors, right? But
Mhm.
we have the other side academy, who's we basically modeled after. And sometimes these new guys will come in and want to be like, well, aren't we better than them? It's like, no, we are them, right? We're all the same. When we go to events and Toast is there and we're there, we don't act like we're not the same unit, right? Like we're a team. That's what the recovery community is a team. What their successes are our successes. Our successes are theirs, same with everywhere else. We united front is the most important front to have when it comes to this battle, for
Yeah,
sure.
amen, agreed. So Justin, when was it that you saw your life starting to turn in the wrong direction? I mean, you said, wasn't it like you started drinking and that, dabbling with things at age 11, which usually seems to be about the age of the majority of the guests I've had on. It starts hitting around 11 to 13, 14 years of age. It always seems like it's around that puberty time when things start changing for individual. When did you actually start going, damn, I love this life, and this is helping me to where I'm not feeling or I'm numbing my sorrows or whatever it may be.
Luckily for me, I started at a young age, doing, I got my first gun charges at age 12. That was a blessing, right? At the time, again, it was horrible to go through. But again, one of those defining moments where I was heading down the wrong path. I was hanging out with gang members. I was selling and using drugs for them. I was carrying around guns, and I'm a child. And luckily, that moment kickstarted me. Plus, I had an uncle that was dear to me, kind of intervene in my life and say, "Hey, this isn't the life you want to live," and took me under his wing and helped pull me out of that. So I started down that path, and about 14 years old, I was able to get some discipline. Finally, a male figure, a role model in my life to guide me and show me that what I was doing is not what kids do, is not what young men do. And so I was able to get my life back on track and graduate high school, which barely, right? And then I got to speak at my graduation. So I found this structure, I found this discipline, I found this role model and somebody to kind of guide me. And it wasn't until after my mom passed away that I knew I was in trouble. But again, I realized that started so that the mentor I had, my uncle, he committed suicide when I was 20. And so that trauma started back then, but my addiction really I didn't have that moment of, oh, I'm in trouble until my mom passed away when I was 29. And so I realize now, having finally processed, because I spent a lot of my life, I was the man of the house, right? So my emotions, my feelings, I shoved them out. I'm fine. I'll be fine, right? This is no big deal. I'm the man of the house. I can handle this. And I did that with everything from the age of 12 till up until really I came to Red Barn. And so even though my addiction didn't take off and I didn't get to those lows and I wasn't physically dependent on it until about the age of 29, 30, it started probably when he committed suicide or even before that, and it took me a while to realize that because I'd always think, oh, well, this started at 30, right? And that's when my physical dependency started. And that's when I really knew I was in trouble. Having experienced it with my mom, I remember that moment. I was at work and I remember experiencing physical withdrawal for the first time. And I think I was 31 or 32. And I remember thinking, oh, no, because I watched my mom go through it, watched my dad go through it. And that's when I really realized I'm heading down the same path and I'm in big trouble right now. Of course, it took years. I'm now 40 and it took some time to figure it out. I'm still figuring it out. I always will be figuring it out. I've made a lot of mistakes since then. I've learned a lot of lessons and there's still lots to be learned. But that's probably the moment that moment where I was like, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble here.
Yeah.
So
And good for you though, Justin, to recognize it, because I think there's quite a few people out there that still don't recognize it.
Yeah.
and I think they also just, and I don't want to speak for everyone. I know a few people that I've had on the show that basically said, both my parents were addicts, and I just figured this was how life was, and this was the direction I'm going to go to. It's just that simple, and not realizing until years down the road that there is a change, whether I don't know whether they got slapped upside the head or they had a spiritual awakening, whatever it may be, that just finally lit that light bulb and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Because it's crazy, because I don't know if you know this, so I spent 8 year weekend, and a lot of people have called BS on it, and I'm like, no, this is the truth. uh, every Friday and Saturday night, cocaine and alcohol. That was my release from stressful work. And that's what I said for a long time. And it was, I had a stressful job, but I also realized I was snuffing a lot of other things out of my life at the same time. And, it got to the point to where, and the 3 years I dated my ex-wife, she had no clue I was snorting cocaine. She knew I was drinking because she was drinking with me, but that's how well I hid it. And I remember going in our bathroom in our house, looking in the mirror, just going, God, please help me. I weighed 198 pounds, never weighed that much my whole life. Looking in the mirror, going, man, if I keep this up, even though it's only 2 days a week, I'm snorting a lot of cocaine in 2 days. And if I continue this, it's probably not going to end up very well. And there was times I fell in the bathtub while trying to go to the bathroom. I could have hurt myself really bad, never did. And I ended up losing a 24-year career of it because of it. And that was my wake up call, going, my hell, I just gave something up that was my life for 24 years just so I could feel some relief 2 days a week. And then I found out too that I wasn't the person who I thought I was. And we spend, again, this is just my version, but I believe we spend the rest of our life improving ourselves. There is no finish line. Because if not, then we get stagnant again. And then that's when we start going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Life, like they say, life's a journey. It's not, there's no destination, especially when it comes to recovery, because we'll never be cured. We'll never, whatever we're looking for, it's a daily battle. And, for me, it took a lot of moments, a lot of wake up calls, and unfortunately, a lot of mistakes, a lot of pain and suffering. I too threw away a career. I loved being a firefighter, and I remember what finally did it for me was I had a gun to my chest, and I had this plan, and I was ready to end my life. And luckily, my pride and ego kicked in a little bit, and probably fear, fear of it. And I couldn't push the button. I remember I have a little girl who I haven't seen in years because of my addiction. And I remember I had that gun to my chest, and all of a sudden my phone rang, and I was in a point where I was isolating so much. I barely got maybe 2 calls a week, and because I was avoiding everybody, and everybody just stopped because they probably knew the mess I was in, and the life I was living. So they backed off, and I was pushing them off. And I remember having that gun to my chest and my phone ringing, and all I could see was the screenshot of my little girl, and that's when I was just like, okay, I can't do this. And luckily I had a warrant, and got in a car accident, and I found out about Red Barn and was able to come here and learn these things about me. And again, I'm still figuring it out. I will be for the rest of my life. Like you said, there's no there's no destination. There's only the climb up the mountain. If you get to the peak, then hopefully that means that you're probably at the end of your life. But most likely, if you're not and you're going back down, then you need to reassess your situation, probably.
Yeah. I like to say that if you reach the top of the mountain, you've hit the bottom of another one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that climb just continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Man, I tell you what, you started bringing tears in my eyes when you talked about that story with the phone. ringing and you saw the picture of your daughter, because almost the same type of thing happened to me. I didn't want to come home to what I was coming home to every day when my ex-wife was in the depth of her addiction, and I was coming home from an event, the exact same type of an event that I just came home from this morning. And I'm like, I'm done. I'll get her to quit. I'm going to go home and get my pistol. I'm going to go up in the mountains where I love to be. That's my church. And I'm going to take my life. And that'll get her to stop. And I don't have to deal with it anymore. And I got a phone call. And I still to this day cannot remember who called me. I knew the individual on the other end of the line. I remember that. I just don't know who. And when I hung up, I saw the picture of my two daughters and three grandkids. And that's when I broke down and just started bawling and going, this is stupid. This is so flippin' stupid. What am I thinking? And for me, my higher power is God. And I think definitely God was watching over me that day. And I don't know, that telephone call that popped up, that screenshot could have been the same for you. Only He knows. We don't. But however, in my eyes, it saved my life. And it sounds like it possibly saved yours that day too.
Absolutely. Again, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was my sister, but I didn't even see the number. All I looked was right at that picture. For some reason, that was the only thing I saw, the only thing I could see. And, you know, it gave me that feeling of selfishness. Here I am getting ready to do to somebody that I had such a hard time with when it was done to me. When my uncle committed suicide, it was it was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And to be in a position where I'm about ready to do that to my little girl, it was that moment of clarity, not just for that to realize, hey, I'm being a hypocrite right now, but also to take the time and think things through. Think about, like, I was in the fire department, fire station, in the shower, and it was like, what am I doing? I'm gonna leave a mess for my fellow firefighter brothers and cause that trauma, my family, my girl. It was just luckily a moment of stop and think. That pause, take time, observe, and proceed. And that's when my pride kicked in, and I said, I need to do something different here. This isn't fair to anybody. I spent so much time thinking that I was all alone. I wasn't allowed to see my little girl at times that I wanted to. She was kind of being held over my head. And my parents were passed away. My biggest role model, all this victim mode mentality, right? And so that's where I went. And I thought maybe it was just better off I wasn't here. Nobody would notice anyway, right? Just that selfish thinking of thinking that I'm unique and nobody knows me or loves me or cares about me, when really there was lots. I just was pushing them all away. My loneliness was self-inflicted, and that was because of all the shame. I was filled with so much shame and disappointment in myself that I pushed away any hope, support, and love that was coming my way, because I didn't want them to see. I didn't want them to see it. I didn't want them to be around it. And again, I thought they would be better off without me, but I was wrong. I spent a lot of time, even since coming here, thinking we don't have much of an impact, right? Like, people don't notice me. I'm not that significant. I'm not unique. What I say is basic, common. I'm just your average Joe kind of self-talk. And then I'll be in a seminar that we have, or a groups that we put together here, and all of a sudden they'll say something that I told them 8 months ago. And I'm like, okay, I remember before I committed to the third year, I remember thinking, what's the, I'm not a good leader in the house, because I'm a house manager now, but at the time I was a leader, and I'm like, I'm not doing a good job as a leader. I probably should just graduate and go. And it was those moments when they would repeat exactly what I said to them, and it made me realize, okay, maybe I do have an impact. I've got the privilege to see my family, and the impact. I remember one instance in particular since I got to Red Barn was I was working at the thrift store and I hadn't seen my family. This is right before, I was ready to end my life and uh just give up. And so you come here and you have your blackout, right? You don't talk to anybody. And so I was at the thrift store working, and all of a sudden my sister came in to the thrift store, which we kind of got in trouble for because we were trying to not let family know. But she found out where I was and came, and just the relief in her face when she saw me and saw that I was alive, and she came up and ran up and hugged me and told me, "I thought you were dead." Just that relief and alone makes me realize, man, how selfish was I, to think that people didn't care, and to think of the pain and all the misery I would have caused a lot of people just because I was in my own selfish thinking. It was a humbling experience.
Yeah, I can imagine it was. Again, I have tears in my eyes really just hearing that story because you hit it spot on. You know, I've dealt with it on my side with my ex's, alcoholism, and I've heard her say, I could disappear tomorrow and no one would even know and no one would even care, and it's not true. And again, it's just how you're feeling at that time when you're in the depth of your addiction, and I remember telling her once, I says, look how many people have reached out to help you. I mean, look, you've been out on the streets and you've been protected. Luckily, nothing bad has happened to you, which can, especially being a woman and as tiny as she is. And, it's just gets to that point too, where the addiction, like you said, we end up pushing them away because of the addiction. And it's not that they don't love you and that they don't care about you, because I bet your sister thought of you every single day, if not all day long, and I may be divorced with my ex. However, when she's out on the streets, I still think of her, hoping that she's okay and hoping that she's safe somewhere and hoping that somebody hasn't taken advantage of her or something, and then when I do hear from her, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness she is still alive. Or if I get a call from a jail, then I know she's alive too, right? Because
Yeah,
at
yeah,
least I know she's somewhere that has a roof over her head. Yeah.
yeah.
What got you to choose Red Barn?
Like I said, I had a warrant and luckily got in a car accident and went to jail. And I was on probation for past mistakes and crimes I committed. And I was probably looking at 3 to 4 months, but I knew me. I was at that point again to where I was gonna end my life. I was giving up on myself. I was giving up on everybody, and I was there in jail, and I was contemplating things, and my pride kicked in. And luckily, a guy that's still a student here with me too, he was right in the Red Barn, and I had heard about it before, but I didn't know fully what it was, and he kind of explained it to me, and I just kind of took the time to really think, if I was to get out in the 3 or 4 months that I would have served, I would have went either right back into my addiction, which again would have caused me to have that shame, that guilt, all that stuff I was carrying with me, or I would have killed myself. If I'm being truthful, that was that's what I looked at, as I was like, okay, what will it look like if I don't go? And that's what I saw. And I got to that point where I'm like, I can't do this, and instead of giving up on me, on myself and on life, I figured, I'll give it a shot. If I still feel that way, I told myself I'd stay for a month. If I still felt that way after a month, then I'll jump the train and go do those things, But luckily, um, this place is magic, And so it was really the influence from the gentleman that was in there with me and was coming here, is still here, and just that prideful, I'm not ready to lose that life. I felt like if I went back out, I would be dead. And I'm a competitive person with myself, right? Like I don't mind if people beat me at certain things. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. But me, it was like if I openly know that this is what will happen when I leave here, then I lost. And I don't want to lose anymore. And so that's what I chose.
Wow. And there's a great bunch of guys there that I have personally met there at Red Barn, and yeah, just amazing, amazing individuals.
Yeah.
You know, it's I don't know, man. The people that I have met in the recovery community since starting this has really, really changed my life, and it's helped me become a better person. Having guests like yourself come on and tell their story and what they've done to get to where they're at today, and I get to learn so much every single week. And I was at this networking event this morning, and I didn't even know I was going to have this opportunity. And one of the ladies who was helping facilitate came up and goes, "Al, it's your turn." And I'm like, "My turn to what?" She goes, "Oh, you're going to get up and announce your event that's happening on Saturday." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize it." And so I got up there, and they gave me the microphone, and I had an opportunity to talk about the Healing Utah Success Summit that's coming up. And I was letting individuals know, I'm like, if you have an opportunity to meet somebody in recovery, stay close to them and get in contact with them, because they will change your life. And I said that with passion, because it is so true. Because we get to learn so much. We talked about empathy earlier in the show, not knowing what someone's gone through in their life, and then to hear what they have gone through, and then to see where they're at today, and to see the way they hold themselves and the way they conduct themselves. My gosh, it's such a huge change, and it shows that it's possible. And it shows no matter who you are, what you are, where you came from, your background, because both of us know addiction doesn't discriminate. It could care less what color skin is, what religion you are, what kind of upbringing you had. However, it just goes to show that when we put our mind to something and we really want it to happen, we can actually make that change happen. And not saying it's easy, but it wasn't easy getting to the addiction, the depth of the addiction either, right? There was still a struggle with that. And the journey just continues. And I've heard so many people say that have come on the show, man, all I'm doing is enjoying the journey. I just wake up every day and go, okay, I'm just living life as what life is today. And that, my gosh, that has got me looking at life that exact same way. Today is today, and I'm going to live my life whatever happens today, because tomorrow's not even here yet. I'm not even guaranteed tomorrow as far as I know. But if I can enjoy what's happening in my life today and handle whatever's thrown at me, tomorrow's going to be completely different.
Right. Yeah. We just had a seminar. I teach weekly seminars here for some of the younger students, and that was actually the topic was being present, and how important that is. I spent a lot of time regretting all these mistakes that I made that now I look at as learning lessons. But back then I would dwell on all this crap that happened, and then I'd worry about what's to come. And it's like you said, the future doesn't even exist yet, and the past is gone. So the important part for me especially is staying present, and that a lot of people get that mixed up with uh future tripping with having a goal and a plan. So you can have a goal that you look forward to, right? But your plan is in the present. You create this plan and you execute it in the present. But future tripping is again worrying about how to achieve that goal. Well, stay present, create your plan, and that's one of the things that's huge. It's been huge for me because that's a lot of what caused a lot of that shame, was living in that past and seeing my life not going anywhere in the future, instead of really just taking the time to live. All that time wasted worrying about stuff that doesn't exist and is no longer there caused me to not plan to be better. It caused me to not live, and it caused me all these things where I wasn't growing. I wasn't moving forward. I was stagnant or I was moving backwards. And I think presence, being present plays a big, huge role in that, assessing yourself in the moment. If I find myself, because it happens, we all have those moments where we start thinking about something that was happened before, something that's to come, maybe your event, right? I remember panicking about because I was kind of responsible for putting together the 5K and the car show this year, and I had never done that before. I'd never put together an event, and all this stuff was on my shoulders. I felt like, right, I'm all worried that this is gonna bomb and we're not gonna make the money we need for our students and all this worries. And I just had to kind of slow myself down and come into the moment through. I like to use grounding techniques. One of them right now, I'm doing them right now, where I just touch my fingertips. When I'm feeling anxious, I like to observe my surroundings, my environment, and just stay grounded and present. And I always have this saying, it's a common saying, but I always tell the guys, if you feel overwhelmed, right? If you have these things that you need to do and you're feeling overwhelmed, one is stay present on the task at hand and focus on how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. If me personally, if I think I got this, and this to do, I'm overwhelmed and it caused me to be stagnant, causes me not to get anything done. But when I can ground myself, get back into the present moment, and I take that one bite at a time, then you're moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And what I've been learning from this is when you stay present, life just seems to work out just fine. Right. And I don't know if I'm right on this, but I'm coming to the conclusion of the reason why it does that. And it's because I'm not getting in my own damn way. Because when we get in our own damn way, that's when other things start happening. And you know, I've I've grabbed the steering wheel from my higher power so many times, and then I end up finding myself going right back down in that damn ditch that I just got myself out of. And then I'm like, it's my wake up call. It's like, okay, okay, done. Just take the wheel. I'm done steering for a bit, and I get right back going in the direction that I need to go. And it really does help life. It really seriously does. And it's stuff I wish I would have known years ago. And here I am in my 60s. And when I started this show, it was in my late 50s. And it's taken me this time into my life to realize it. However, again, that was my journey. I had to go through everything I've had to go through to get to where I'm at in my life right now at this point.
Yeah. You know, Going through these experiences, it makes you who you are. Those wake up calls, those moments of clarity, those aha, and I'm guilty of thinking, oh, I've got this, right? Like I've had some moments of sobriety through the last, I think my addiction's been for about 7 to 8 years, really bad. And I'd have this year of sobriety and think, oh, I got this figured out, right? I'd put all my eggs in this basket, which was physical exercise. I thought, oh, I'll be fine. And it worked for a while till it didn't, right? And so being here made me realize I need to have what I call them pillars of happiness, or my pillars of happiness. One is I have to stay sober. First and foremost, if I even question the thought of dabbling or thinking I can go out and do this and that and I'll be fine, I'm already in trouble, right? And the other is physical exercise, being of service and being selfless and helping other guys. Like my purpose now, I found since being here is um I threw my firefighting career away. Most likely not going to hire me ever at any point because of felonies and crime. And so for the longest time, I would think, well, that was my calling. I have nothing. What am I going to amount to, right? And so now I've found that this is it, helping other people overcome the struggles that addicts overcome, helping them through life traumas, those losses, those experiences with letting life punch us in the mouth and crawling and not getting back up. You know, that's where I found my service now lies, is if I can help save one life a week even is huge. One life a month is huge. So, you know, finding that purpose and being of service, and then, you know, just making sure I stay sober, making sure I stay active and connected, you know, that, like you said, isolation's not the way. And so it took me a while to figure it out that I need multiple things. I can't just rely on one thing or another. It has to be a combined thing for me, you know, to fully live happy. I used to think that success was having a fancy car and making all this money and, you know, having a beautiful wife or whatever, you know. And now I just realized that success is just being happy, you know, being happy in where you are and knowing who you are and what you want to be and what you believe. You know, for the longest time I wanted to be certain things when I realized internally, what's that, cognitive dissonance, you know, wanting to be this, but really in my heart, I wanted to be something else entirely. And, you know, luckily I've been able to find a lot of those things here.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, look at the lives that you're changing, Justin. I mean, you didn't think you was doing much good, and then you have people come up and say something to you. I mean, that's just, to me, that's just amazing, right? Because it goes to show how little that we feel that we're doing, how big that impact is for so many individuals without even realizing that it's happening. And changing one life, like you said, that domino effect is just going to grow, because that person that you helped is now going to help another person or change a person's life, and just so on and so forth. And it just keeps expanding, and that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah, it's a big thing, you know, being that domino effect. Like you said, I had somebody tell me once that it takes one person to bring down eight people, and eight positive people to bring up one negative person. So, you know, I always think on those days where I'm like, you know, I don't make it, I don't make an impact. I want to duck under the radar. I don't want to show up for the day. I realize, you know, if I'm being negative, I could bring down eight other people around me. There's already enough negativity in the world, you know, and so having that awareness and just the forefront of my mind, it says, okay, I'm gonna show up for myself and others, and it has that domino effect. You know, I remember we'd go out on pickups for thrift, and I had a game that I'd play with Luis. He's a staff member here now, and I would say, okay, we're gonna smile at everybody we see without a smile on their face and see what happens. And maybe one person out of I don't know how many would not smile back, but almost all of them always smiled back. So I always tell people before I leave them, when I'm checking in with the younger guys and seeing how they're doing, right before I leave them, I'll kind of hit them with, hey, you see somebody without a smile, give them one of yours. They're free anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so
I love that. That is so awesome. And by doing that, just that smile can change a person's day so flipping quickly.
absolutely. You know, I also tell them, you know, having a negative attitude is like peeing your pants. Everybody can see it, but only you can feel it, and only you're sitting in it. So
I
it's
love
one of
that
my
one too.
favorites. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to use it.
Yeah.
So Justin, here we're coming up to the end. It's amazing how fast an hour goes by. You know, people who work at facilities or have a book or whatever they need, I always like to give them the opportunity to talk about it. So let people know a little bit more about Red Barn and where they're located, and how they can find you. Because one of the coolest things, and I said just one of the coolest things about Red Barn and even Tosa, it's a free facility. All you got to do is want and have the dedication, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some charges that that we don't allow if people have sex crime charges and arson charges. But yeah, if you're able and you're willing to change your life, you know, that want is huge because that want inevitably is what's going to decide if you make it. It's not easy. It's not an easy program, right? We're a life skills academy that teaches leadership, that teaches accountability, honesty, a lot of these things that none of us had. And it it sometimes is hard to swallow when you got somebody holding up a mirror saying, this is what you're doing, this is who you are. Is that the kind of person you want to be? And you realize, no. You know, that cognitive dissonance where you're acting a certain way, knowing that it's wrong. You know, that internal turmoil and battle is hard to face for a lot of us. And not to mention the 2 year, 27-month commitment that it requires is a big deal. But again, I tell the guys, if you weren't living your life anyway, right? You were spending years just being stagnant or moving backwards. What's another two to guarantee your future, right? What's another two to help you solidify living a healthy, productive life? A lot of these guys, they'd go, if they had free money for school, they'd go to a 4 year college and try it just so they could make $100,000+ a year. Why not spend 27 months to get your life back on track? What is that? You know, you would do it for money. Why not do it for you? And
Yeah.
it's hard to see that, you know, even me, I had moments of doubt and wanting to leave because it's hard. But you know, it's if you if that want is there, then you can get whatever you need to live a productive, healthy life here at Red Barn. And we're located in Farmington, across the main road from Station Park. We're kind of tucked back down the road with where Cabela's is, and it is a closed campus, but we do offer opportunities for people like yourself to come talk. I think I have Jessica. Was Jessica your referral to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is she coming?
she's coming in November, so we have
Awesome.
things like that. We have our events, we have our thrift store. Come out and support because all this stuff goes towards these men. You know, any support we can get goes towards these men, and it's changing lives. It's changing mine, and it's you know, like you said, there's a lot of good guys here. There's a lot of good guys that just made some mistakes and they're trying to overcome that stigma of what addiction is and criminals are. And you know, we know there's always going to be some haters out there that look at us as label us and judge us, you know, but to me it's just a good reminder of why I won't do the same. You know, I'm not going to judge, I'm not going to label, I'm just going to see people for who they are, and that's what we're here to do. If there was an opportunity for reinvention or second chances, then I would be in trouble, you know.
Yeah.
We offer that here. So
Well, and all of us deserve that, right? I mean, even third and fourth chances, as long as somebody is still putting forth the effort, that says something. It's, you
yeah,
know, it's very few of us that just finally throw in the flag and say enough's enough. But us as human beings, it's in us. It's in our DNA. It's in our DNA really to fight and continue to fight. And unfortunately, there's a few where the addiction has just got the talons in it so deep and they just don't, you know, it's just so hard for them. And I believe God calls them back home to help them to where they need to be. And those who get those talons out, people like yourself and so many other individuals that I've had the pleasure, the opportunity to meet at Red Barn, who I just like to say are the angel that are walking amongst us that are now out there changing people's lives. Because if it wasn't for individuals like you and so many, who else would it be? There wouldn't be anyone. There wouldn't be anyone. And we've had to go through what we've gone through to help those individuals. Because I cannot sit down with a heroin addict and talk addiction with them because I've not stepped in those shoes. But someone who was a heroin addict that does what you're doing can, you know,
right.
because they understand the pain, they get it, they've been there, they've lived it. I can help a lot more people who have been on the other side. So again, if it wasn't for individuals like you and so many hundreds and thousands of other people out there, none of this change would be possible. And that's why it's so important we continue to use our voices and get ourselves out there in the community, which Red Barn does that, right? With the, like you
Yeah.
said earlier, the car shows and different things, and seeing the people at the restaurants and the thrift stores and things. Man, it's like I remember when I went and visited the thrift store that Tosa has in Murray, and Robert, who runs it, he's out there and he's showing me around. He says, "See the guy at the cash register?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "He was like the biggest thief in Salt Lake City. And here we are trusting him to run a cash register." He
Yeah.
goes, "That says something, doesn't it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, it says something."
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty neat. And just the fact that most of our staff here is all graduates, that's what makes it work, is it's ran by people that have been in our shoes. I'm a house manager in the house and I can help guide these guys through it because I've been through it. I am them, they are me. So that's a big part of why it works. And it's funny to see because I remember we were on a move. We have our moving company, and I remember one of the younger guys uh, got asked to go get the owner's purse she left in her car, and he's looking like, Really? Yeah, and he comes in and he brings it in, holding it up like this. He's all, I trust you, or I wouldn't have sent you out there. And it's just neat to see these guys get that trust that they lost or didn't think they had, and reinvent.
Yeah. Do you guys have a website that people can look up to find
Yeah,
you?
you can go to redbarnfarms.org. It shows, student highlights, has a list of the staff members. Our events are on there, things like that. We do have our Angel Tree program coming up for Christmas. It's kind of the way that we provide a Christmas that a lot of these guys have never experienced before, getting gifts and having laughs and just the joy of Christmas. A lot of us didn't experience, living out on the streets and having a broken home. So our Angel Tree program helps us raise the funds and items needed to give them that. So
That is so cool. So, Justin, to wrap this thing up, what does being on the other side of addiction mean to you?
it means everything to me because if without, again, like I've discussed, I wouldn't be here. So being on the other side of addiction, uh and again, it's a journey and it's a daily battle that I'll never continue to solidify. It'll be a daily thing that I battle every day. When I lose sight of that, I'm lost. But it means my life. It means that I can be that man, that person that those that love me deserve. It means that I can show up for the next guy that's struggling and going through the same things I experienced and help guide them and hopefully help them to get to that other side. It's given me a purpose that I lost a long time ago. Like I said, when I realized I'd no longer be a firefighter EMT, I felt purposeless and I had no purpose, right? I felt like there was no meaning for me to be in this world. And being on the other side of addiction and knowing what I know now has given me that purpose to help others go through it, figure it out, and hopefully save a life or two.
I love it. Thank you. Very well said. Thank you for your time. And I want to give Red Barn a plug too. Thank you guys for supporting us for the Healing Utah Success Summit. You guys have come in and been sponsors the last three events that we've had, and it means so much to me, and it means so much to Mallory, the other co-founder, and our entire Healing Success team. Because if it wasn't for Red Barn and so many other individuals out there, this event wouldn't be possible. So I just want to say thank you to you guys, for seeing our vision as well. It definitely means a ton. And thank you, Justin, for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And your nervousness went away very, very quickly once we started talking. You
I
did
was,
amazing. Yeah. So, hey, if that works, that works, right?
yeah, those fingertips are still going, but thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you did amazing. You shared a lot of great information, and it's not easy to be vulnerable and share a part of your life that you're not proud of or wasn't proud of at the time, but to see the glow and see your inspiration and see who you are today as an individual, man, good on you. You're tearing it up, and it's an honor to get to know you.
The honor's mine, Al. I appreciate the invite, and it's been good to get to know you as well.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, again, another great show. Thank you for all our supporters, all our past guests, future guests, especially all you listeners for making this show possible. You guys are the ones that's making it all happen. And we just want to say this, remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.